This is the Nottingham Planning Board meeting for March 24th, 2021, 7 o'clock. In anticipation of the extension of the Executive Order 2021-04, the Nottingham Planning Board will be holding a virtual hearing. Access to this meeting is given through Zoom. All members of the board have the ability to communicate contemporaneously during this meeting through this platform, and the public has access to contemporaneously listen and, if necessary, participate in the meeting. If you do have some issues or difficulties connecting to this meeting, you can contact Joanna at 679-9597. And we have a pretty full agenda tonight. So I will go through, ask Steph Casella to go through some of the procedures on the public hearings. But before I do that, let's get a roll call of the board members. So if you could just indicate you're here and can see and or hear. Ed Veal.
Present.
Gary Anderson.
Here.
Susan Mooney.
Here.
Ian McKinnon.
Here.
Tyler Eaton.
Here.
Robert Davies.
Here.
And Leanne Gast.
Here.
Okay, great. Seeing we have an open seat that has yet to be filled, I'll seat, I guess, Robert Davies as the alternate. I wasn't present at the last one, so forgive me if you're going twice.
I think we both were seated at the last one.
Okay.
Yeah, I think if we're alternating, I think you're in the right order, Dirk.
Okay, thanks. So before we, I guess, jump into these cases, I do want to just point out if Steph from RPC can just articulate the public meeting procedure for public comment and how you would do that in Teams.
Sure. So public will be given the opportunity to provide comment for some of the cases tonight. If you are on a computer, you can go to the participants tab, and there should be a button within that window that says raise hand. If you click that, that'll signal Joanna and I that you have something to say, and we will click on you, we'll call on you, and ask you to unmute yourself. If you are calling in on the phone, you can do that by dialing *9, and that will do the same thing. It will signal Joanna and I that you are ready to make a comment. We ask that everybody stays on mute until Joanna or I give you the opportunity to unmute. And if you are having any issues, the chat function goes directly to us, so feel free to use that as well.
Great, thanks, Steph.
I think that's it. Yep.
Before I get rolling here, any comments from the planning board on any procedures or difficulties or anything?
No, just point of order. I didn't know if you read or wanted to read the emergency declaration.
I thought I did.
Oh, maybe you did. Sorry. Time change.
I don't know. Somebody check me. I might have just read it in my head.
No, you did, Dirk.
All right.
So Derek, rather, just a question around that. Are we, now that we're seeing vaccinations starting, are we seeing any changes coming our way as far as our meeting schedules? Or
I have still yet to hear anything. It's going to be, kind of town-wide on when we can go back and meet in person, and how that's going to be facilitated. I haven't heard anything new. Joanna, do you have anything to add? No. So, you know, I'm hoping that, you know, maybe another month or two of these kind of meetings, and then maybe we can get together as a board, you know, by summertime.
Hey, Tyler, didn't I see the selectmen going back in April, right?
Do it in April.
Yeah. Okay.
I guess that's what led me to ask that question.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I'm actually finding that, you know, there's more public access doing this, or at least participation doing this via Zoom. And, you know, there's usually a good availability of people that can join it, but not only that, it's recorded and then it is on YouTube for playing whenever they want, if you want to check it out after the meeting has happened. So some of the functions are still really good, and I'm not sure if we'll continue with those. Again, a bit of that's up to the town administration.
Thanks, Dirk.
Yep. All right, so we'll start into the public hearing. Like I said, we have 4 cases tonight, and just so everybody's aware, if you don't have an agenda with you, the first case will be an application by Owl Ridge Builders for Stevens Hill. The second application will be a lot line adjustment for Sarah Evans, and that is on Ledge Farm Road. The third case is Marilyn and Jeffrey Cole, and that's a subdivision on Kennard and Smoke. And the fourth case will be the trustee of Kubota Trust for a Watercross event. So that will be the order of which we're going in tonight. I will go into the case. First case. Somebody have anything to say? Sorry. Sometimes you'll have to just interrupt me, any board members, because I'm just going to keep talking. Case number 21-004 SUB. This is an application from Owl Ridge Builders, LLC, requesting to subdivide a lot into 2 separate lots for 2 single-family homes. The property has frontage on both Stevens Hill, a Scenic Road, and Deerfield Road in Nottingham, and is identified as map 52, lot 10. And so this is a new application, and I'd ask Steph if you could go through the staff review for this, and then we will get into whether we accept the application and then move forward with hearing the application.
Sure. So like Dirk said, this is a 2-lot subdivision. The applicant has already gone to the ZBA for a minimum lot size requirement variance, and that will be for proposed lot 10 at 1.89 acres. So they already have that with them. I had a couple other things flagged, more just surface level items, you know, typos and misreferences. As far as I'm concerned, everything looks complete, and I was able to get a full picture for what the application was for tonight.
Great, thank you. Any comments from the board in their review, if they have feel like this is have any issues with accepting this application? If not, you know, a motion to accept it.
Mr. Chair, this is Susan. I move that we accept the case number 21004 SUB as complete.
I'll second
Not
that.
the case, the application.
Sorry, Buzz, I didn't catch that.
Well, it's not really the case, it's the application we're accepting is complete.
Yeah, accepting the application.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Ian, you seconded?
Yes.
Okay. Let me just roll call the vote. Ed Veal?
Yes.
Gary Anderson? Susan Mooney?
Yes.
Gary, I guess I didn't quite hear you.
Sorry, I was muted. Yes.
Okay. Ian McKinnon?
Yes.
Tyler Eaton?
Yes.
And Robert Davies?
Yes.
Okay, and chair votes yes, so we have accepted that application. Steph, were there any waivers that were necessary?
No waivers were requested.
Okay. So this, I'll have the applicant explain the subdivision here. And as Steph indicated, this has been through ZBA, and the zoning board has granted a variance to have a residential lot less than the required 2 acres. And as far as the rest of the lot, it does need to conform. So there were no other variances in those other conformance areas, such as setbacks and whatnot. So I'd ask the applicant to present this application.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, Christopher Berry with Berry Surveying and Engineering, representing Owl Ridge Builders here this evening. I'll share with you a marked up plan. We received comments from planning staff last night or the night before, I forget which. I happened to be sitting at my computer, so I quickly made the changes and annotated a plan quickly and sent it back. So this represents that plan. As Steph has pointed out, as well as the chair, we have been before the ZBA to create a lot that's less than 2 acres in size. So lot 10 is slightly less than 2 acres, but meets all of the other requirements. And then create lot 10-1, which has enough frontage, has enough landmass, meets the width requirements, and also meets all of the setback requirements. A couple of comments that Steph had made on the plans. We didn't have the total frontage listed, so you'd have to add all of the frontages up to know whether or not we met the frontage requirements. So we added that to the plans to ensure that we had adequate frontage. And there was a typo here. Previously, this had SCRD for Stratford County, and it's really Rockingham County, so that has also been corrected. In the past, working in Nottingham, we have on narrow roads been requested an easement along the front of the roadway, approximately 25 feet from center, to allow the road agent or other town officials the ability to maintain and grade the roadway. And so she notes that we showed this potential easement on our checklist, as well as showed it on the plan. And we would just ask the board to sort of weigh in on whether or not they felt that was necessary and appropriate. To further that point, the road agent has offered up an opinion on site distance. The proposed driveway for both of the lots is to service here at the boundary line, essentially. So you'd have just sort of a shared access point, and then it would branch off into each one of the lots. And to ensure that we have adequate site distance, he's recommended that we peel the knob that's there back and then reset the stone wall and then regrade the ditch line at the front of the site. And our applicant is willing to undertake that work. And so that grading easement through that area is probably more important now that work would be undertaken than even when the plan was conceived. So we would offer that easement up and provide for the easement language to be reviewed by town council. The site, from a topographic standpoint, you come in, there's a slight rise to the center, and then it slopes off to the back. There are some steep slopes at the back of the site, and there's just some side slopes here that come off from the fill slope of Stevens Hill Road. And the proposed, again, here are the proposed driveways. They're located essentially at the same location, but share an access point sort of here at the neck. We have our 4,000 square foot leaching areas shown, proposed wells, and well radiuses on the lot. And the soils on site are actually pretty good. So we also show the NRCS soils that are provided for on site. And the test pits found that those soils groupings are actually pretty accurate for this area. The site also requires a state subdivision approval. And upon this board's approval, we would file with subsurface for that permit as well. We did receive comments from the fire chief this afternoon, though we understand his comments. Sprinkler systems are not required for single-family homes, which these are. And so the applicant is not proposing sprinkler systems at this time. And then the other comment relating to driveways being over the leaching areas, these are a demonstration of how the driveway would enter the site and a demonstration of where someone could put a septic system. And so that would be altered during the construction process and the final design of the house placement and the lots moving forward. So we wouldn't have driveways that would go over septic systems in the future. So with that, I think it's a pretty basic application. I'd be happy to try and answer any questions the board might have.
Derek,
Okay.
I've got a question.
Yes.
What's the proposal for fire protection if sprinklers are not going to be included?
There isn't a proposal. I don't believe that cistern is required for a small 2-lot subdivision. And the residential sprinklers are not required for single-family homes of this size.
You know what the distance is to the nearest cistern or from here? Is it shown anywhere on this plan? I don't remember seeing it.
It doesn't, no, and I don't have that knowledge right off the top of my head.
Okay.
Shouldn't the distance to the fire station be there too?
There is a cistern on Deerfield Road I can't tell you what the distance is, but I know there is a cistern.
There's also a hydrant.
I think this is about 5 or 6 miles from the fire station, if I remember correctly.
Oh, no.
Isn't there a cistern right there where the Elliott River goes under Deerfield Road?
Yes.
Which is one house lot to the east of this proposal.
Yeah, I think that's a is that a
dry hydrant? Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Dry hydrant.
I have a question just regarding the site distance. I just didn't fully understand that. If might be able to explain that better.
So the site distance to the north is obscured when you're leaving this driveway or these two driveways. And so the road agent has recommended that we remove the material and the vegetation through this area and then reset the stone wall in the location that's shown on the plan so that the wall is sort of rebuilt where it was placed prior, and that will open up the site distance. So from a topographic standpoint, you can see this is sort of a knob or a top of slope here. So when you pull out of here, you're essentially looking right down the sideline of that, and it obscures the site distance. If we can peel that back a little bit, we get much better site distance to the north side of that.
So it's actually a cut of the grade.
Yeah, right. So when I say remove material, I'm referring to cutting the grade down a little bit and sloping that back.
Thank you.
So Mr. Berry, this is Sue Mooney wanting to make a comment. So to the north of the driveways, are you talking about cutting back that steep slope that's there, as well as maybe taking down some trees?
Yes. Yep. There would be some tree removal right on the stone wall, right on the back side of the stone wall, and then that slope would be cut back. Yes.
Okay. Because Stevens Hill is a scenic road, the Conservation Commission has an opportunity to entertain this application and also have the opportunity to go out and see what's proposed. So I would recommend on behalf of the Conservation Commission that we do our due diligence as far as that's concerned. And it might be premature, but our next meeting, I wrote it down somewhere. Thank you. Next meeting is April 12th. And if someone could mark the trees to be removed, that would be very helpful. Anybody there?
Yep. I would agree that we would request at very least the driveways be identified in the field, staked out or flagged, so that we can see where those are relative to those stone walls.
So, Sue, are you suggesting a site walk, or are you suggesting that they should come before the Conservation Commission?
Well, it's the least that the applicant needs to come before the Conservation Commission and just outline where these impacts are going to be along the roadside, cutting down the steep slope, and then also what trees are going to be removed. I don't recall what there is for vegetation, even though it's just down the road from me. So I'd like the opportunity to be able to say, oh yeah, that tree's going to go, or this is going to be trimmed down, and with other members of the commission as well.
That comes out of our subdivision regs 1536, the scenic road access, that the plans at least have to be submitted to the Conservation Commission for comment prior to final approval.
And is that a shall, as in S-H-A-L-L?
That's correct.
Okay, that's it then.
Well, I'm sorry, must. It's a must.
And just so I'm clear, this is specific to scenic roads?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, yes. Yes.
Mr. Barry, so with the two driveways being so close to each other, I don't know if normally I know you mentioned kind of why that's planned. Normally, I think we usually space those out a bit. So having them so close to each other, I think this would be probably a pretty good ideal candidate for a shared driveway, which again, that would mean it would have to go up the common boundary. Is there any, I don't know if there's any thought as to that, to avoid having two access points in that area and two separate, cuts?
Well, I mean, we can certainly just share the neck. So we have one common cut and then branch off. So, I mean, we just join right here into a, really small 10-foot or 15-foot easement here at the entrance. So yeah, that's not a problem at all.
Well, unfortunately, I mean, our zoning ordinance, unfortunately, for shared driveways states that it has to be kept upon the common boundary.
Right.
The way we've handled that in the past means that it's supposed to go up the common boundary, not branch off immediately. It's kind of supposed to go up and then branch only towards each house. Well, how far does it have to go? I didn't read that it prescribes how far it has to go.
There is no set distance in the regulation.
But for the past few that we've had that didn't do that, they were originally proposed to just go in a little bit and then branch. They've had to go to the zoning board for relief.
Yeah, whether it was 50 feet or something.
Yeah. Because I think that would also help mitigate the impact on the scenic road. Obviously, there's going to be impact anyway because of the having to degrade that area to improve the sight line. But it would potentially make it less of a less of an impact in that area.
Yeah, I mean, some of it might have to come to some technical design with that driveway because it's going, diagonal across a slope right now. And if it does get straightened out, it's basically going straight up the slope, and that makes for a steeper cut. So it really should branch out at some point, in my opinion.
Better for erosion control.
Right.
Yeah. So I mean, I would think we'd kind of want to branch it right here, right before it starts going up slope. So I mean, I don't know. I can't distance on this PDF, but I mean, that's only a short neck in. I don't think the applicants would mind that, and then sort of branching off and traversing the slopes, to get to the building areas. But I don't think we want to be coming in 50 feet. I think the chairman's point is well taken, that would create more of a cut through there than I think we really want to be working with.
Yeah, and you'd cut through the buffers between the two lots. And
right.
Trees and whatnot.
Right.
It also at least establishes the single entrance onto the scenic road.
Yeah, I think that's probably the key point of that regulation of the combined driveways, having it as a single point access.
Right. I guess that's not in the past when we've treated it, again, it's basically we've treated it that's gone up the common boundary, and anything that forked early went to ZBA. So, our ordinance isn't clear. It just says shall be kept to the common boundary. So the plain language of that means it should be kept on the common boundary. It doesn't say the curb cut shall be, it says the driveway shall be. And that slope doesn't appear to be all that much unless I'm looking at it wrong. It looks like that's about 50 feet, the tighter contours, and it's only a 3 to 5 foot elevation change.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman. The applicant would like to speak.
Okay.
She can't figure out how to raise her hand.
Oh, okay.
Not me.
You can unmute her.
Yep, she's unmuted.
Hello.
It's he.
Can you hear us?
Yes.
Yes. I met with Sean, the road agent, on multiple occasions about driveway placement, and there was no issues with any line of sight other than cutting that bank back. So that was his recommendation, was to cut that bank back.
Yeah. Yep. He wrote a notice back to us about that and indicated that bank should be cut back.
Correct.
Yep.
He chose the placement to have the driveways.
Right. That's where he wanted
the driveways side by side. It wasn't that's not the only places they can go, honestly.
Right.
Okay, so those are based on his recommendations, these locations that are shown on the plan.
Correct.
Correct.
That's right. Okay.
Mr. Chair, I have a couple thoughts. Some of them already mentioned, but I actually drove by the site. I think it was last week. The first thing I noticed was that mound, so I'm glad the applicant's amenable to cutting that back. I know we're offering they're proposing to offer this easement. I think from what I saw, it's pretty abrupt. It's probably it's several feet. I think we might have to excavate a little bit more than what the proposed easement is. So I think that just needs to be worked out with the public works director. I had written down a comment on the driveways. I was wondering why they were split into two. So I'm in support of the common curb cut per se. It looks like it's about a 10-to-1 slope or something through here because these are 1 foot contours. But I would be in support of promoting like the fork earlier on in this case, just to try and reduce the effect of an avenue coming in off the scenic road. Maybe some better buffering between the two lots. And that kind of goes to that would help them cut across that slope. If they didn't, I think there's the potential they'd have maybe pushing the 8% maximum on the driveway without a lot of cut and fill. That's really all I had. So A lot of you guys had already captured most of it.
Okay. Thank you. I do have a couple of comments as well regarding the scenic roads. Often what we're finding is people or owners are unaware that they're on a scenic road. So I would like to see a note on both the subdivision plan and then the topo plan stating that this is on a scenic road and what those scenic road requirements are, which, you know, are basically the stone walls and tree removal. So when someone does remove those trees, or the owners, you know, have been notified of that.
Mm-hmm.
And we can work with the applicant on what that language is.
Yeah. Thank you, Jack.
Yep. And then another comment is there is a wetland stamp on this, and it says that wetlands were delineated, but there aren't any wetlands.
Yeah, that we did have somebody cruise the site, so we can change the verbiage to, you know, wetlands were reviewed, or potential wetlands reviewed and none found, or something to that effect.
Yep. Yep. And then my last comment is in note 5 on the subdivision plan relative to the zoning setbacks and dimensional properties. You're showing a squiggle line, which I think should be probably in equals. So front setback equals 50 feet, side setback equals 50 feet. You've got a non-numerical value symbol in there. And we really do like to see what's required, which is what you have listed here, and what's proposed. We're not seeing any of the proposed listed out here. And it does, you know, it says minimum lot size, but it doesn't say that one of them's not under the minimum lot size. We'd have to go back to the lot and actually see that.
Okay, so you'd like basically a lot by lot chart for dimensional standards?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, just, you know, just what's required and what's actually provided. I guess those are my comments.
Mr. Chair, I had one more thing. I know Mr. Berry touched upon it earlier regarding the easement. I know this is proposed, the easement, you know, using the term easement is proposed on another application, which I know we're going to talk about tonight. Have we received any more guidance from either whether the town administrator or anybody at the town as to if there is a process? I know there's some confusion if this would just be proposed and it kind of just dies out, or how do we kind of direct that process to continue to make sure whether it's the, because I think the select board has to ultimately accept that easement.
That is correct. Yeah, I
just know there was some question. I know we had an application a couple months ago that, you know, there was an easement proposed a long time ago and then just nothing happened to it. I guess we just want to make sure, people are actually following through and offering that.
Yeah, and this is a great case for this because, you know, you could tell that on that side of the roadway, the lot line is pretty close. Current lot line is pretty close to the edge of road. So if there was any widening or, you know, paving of this road, that easement would have to be, you know, taken in the future. So in good planning sense, we would request that out of the applicant now, which is it's being offered. So I think in this case, we would accept that, and we would just need to follow through on how that language gets worked back and approved through the town. Okay. Tyler, do you have any information or knowledge on these easements?
No, but I can ask, get a hold of Chris, and next time the board meets, if you get questions, I'll ask them.
Okay. So yeah, I would say, and in this language, it does say potential easement 25 feet from center line of Stevens Hill if required by the planning board. I think we are requiring it. So I would take potential off and make this an easement 25 feet from the center line.
Okay. And so we will, we'll also take a look at Mr. McKinnon's point as well taken. We'll take a look at some actual grading and see if an additional 5 or 10 feet is needed from the 25 feet that we've proposed there in that one area. We might just modify the easement a little bit, and then we'll offer some language for the board's review and town council's approval, and then I would assume it would go to the select board for acceptance, and then it will be placed. That deed would then go on record, and then each one of these lots would have a subject to burden the lot with that easement moving forward. So that's how it finalizes and gets ratified.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I just want to make sure this doesn't sit on somebody and then it comes up on a title report many years and it never was in limbo. So.
Yep.
Well, we'll have that as a condition of approval, and we'll follow through with it on this one and all the rest of them coming forward.
Yeah, hopefully we can maybe come up with some sort of streamlined process and help everybody out. All right, thanks.
Yep. Any other board members with comments about this application?
Yeah, Mr. Barrett, Mr. Beal, just one other item. I feel like in a deed or somewhere there was mention of a possible utility easement. Is there? I don't know if that's just the one that goes on the road, or are there any other easements that you know of that aren't shown?
Nope. I did ask that question because I noticed the same thing. I think there's a utility easement on this parcel here.
That's what I kind of thought.
And because this parcel came out of this parcel, it's still sort of carried over and referenced, but that there are no utility easements on our side.
All right, thank you. And are the two proposed driveway locations right now, are they flagged to kind of delineate so people can drive by and see?
They're not flagged. There's a break in the wall here now, so it's pretty readily, it's quite obvious where it will be, but I can certainly set a grade stake. That's not a problem. And then once I just rough in some grading on this mound, I can flag which trees would then need to be removed just based on a basic distance from the existing stone wall. So we can flag those and take a look.
Yeah, thank you. That's really always very helpful, especially if a site walk isn't going to be done.
When you say the cut, is that where that exists? It looks like there's some existing truck access into the lot. Is that where the driveway would be?
Yeah. There was a cut in the wall, and it's clearly how somebody accessed this land prior. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else from the board before I open it to the public?
Okay. Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I did it just kind of piggybacking off of that question on utility easements. Just wondered if the applicant had any thought about the easement or about the utilities coming in, whether they would be underground or overhead.
I'd have to check your rules. I believe they're required to be underground.
They're required to be underground.
Yeah, so we would have one drop pole, most likely. And I haven't talked to Eversource about this, but I would assume that we'll need one drop pole at the entrance, and then from there we would run underground poles to the houses.
Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to open it up to the public hearing. Again, as Steph mentioned earlier in the meeting, if you have a comment, please raise your hand through the Zoom meeting or chat, and they will unmute you. Anybody from the public have a comment?
I'm not seeing anything, but Linda F has taken herself off of mute. Linda, do you have anything you'd like to add?
I have two comments. This is Linda Fernald. Our property is on Deerfield Road opposite this.
Mm-hmm.
Two things. The electric company going up Stevens Hill Road from this end is New Hampshire Electric. And the distance to the firehouse is 4 miles.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else? Comment? Okay, well, I think this, we'll need to continue this meeting to get to the Conservation Commission, have them a chance. I don't really know if the board is interested in a full site walk. They're more than welcome to ask for one. You know, it is a 2-lot subdivision with a really single point driveway. But that's up to the board. And then Conservation Commission will also have the opportunity to go out and look at those. I think if it's flagged and planning board members want to drive by that, that should be sufficient.
Mr. Veal, I agree with that. For this one, that sidewalk isn't necessary, especially since the applicant agreed to do that additional flagging for us to be able to see the impacted areas. And then
Okay.
Sue, what's the date of the next Concom meeting that you mentioned?
You said April 12th. Actually, she's on mute right now.
So what's the next planning board meeting after that?
We're the 14th.
I was on mute, the 12th.
So by the 14th, we'll have at least comments back from the planning board, maybe, I mean, from the Conservation Commission, maybe informally, but Sue, that's only 2 days after.
Yeah, no, I'm good for that. I'll write a note.
All right.
Dirk, I'm also in agreement that I don't think a site walk would be needed for this. Like I said, I drove by it. There's plenty of space to park, and I think everything we've really talked about is right on the road.
Okay.
Yeah, great.
But I probably will take another drive by once Mr. Berry flags those trees. I'm just curious what ended up needing to come down.
Yep. Okay, then I would entertain a motion to continue to the 16th or the 14th.
14th, yeah.
Mr. Chair, it's Mr. Veal. I move that we continue case 21-004-SUB to our April 14th, 2021 planning board meeting at 7 p.m.
Second.
A second.
Who was first?
It doesn't matter. Ian.
All right.
I think Gary won by a split hair.
All right, we'll give it to Gary this time. Any discussion on that motion? I just want to make sure that the public is aware that the public hearing will stay open. I think if you are interested in driving by as well, taking a look at any of the driveways or have any other concerns, you can attend the meeting on the 16th and you'll be able to provide any input you like.
I apologize. I meant to ask Mr. Berry just make sure that the date works for him.
16th to the 14th.
14th.
Sorry, 14th.
I didn't hear the question from the vice chair.
Is the 14th, April 14th, a doable continuance date for you?
Oh yeah, no problem.
Okay.
I spend all I do is meetings, so yeah, that's great. Yeah.
Mr. Berry, I have a question or a comment.
Okay. Hold on, Susan. We need to have a vote on this.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Second. Yeah, I know you weren't credited with the second, but we're going to have a vote.
Okay.
Ed Veal?
Yes.
Gary Anderson,
Yes.
Susan Mooney,
Yes.
Ian McKinnon,
Yes.
Tyler Eaton,
Yes.
Robert Davies.
Yes.
Chair votes yes. All right, Susan.
Thank you. I'm sorry. Mr. Berry, will you be in touch with Sam Demerit to be put on the agenda?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for everybody's input. Have a great night.
Yep. All right, we'll get on to the next case on 21005 LLA, an application from Peter Landry on behalf of the owner, Sarah P. Evans, trustee of Clifford D. Evans Revocable Trust, requesting a lot line adjustment to adjust the existing common boundary between map 58 lot 6, sublot A, and lot 6, sublot 1. These properties are located at 66 and 70 Ledge Farm Road, Nottingham, and are identified as tax map 58 lot 6, sublot A, and 6, sublot 1. We have received the application. Steph, could you just maybe walk us through the application and acceptance?
Yep. So this looks like a pretty straightforward transfer of land. Both parcels are well above our minimum requirement with the transfer of 28.525 acres between the two of them. I didn't find any glaring issues in my review. A couple of notes and standard stamps and signatures that need to be added. Maybe the applicant can speak to, just confirming that will be on the final plan set. And one note that Ledge Farm Road be labeled where it's gravel. Other than that, it looks like a complete application to me, and no waivers have been requested.
Okay, great, thanks. So you guys have received the staff's review comments, and Steph just summarized them. Next point would be to accept the application.
Chairman, Gary Anderson, I would move to accept the application for case number 21-005-LLA.
Second. Oh, you can give it to Sue.
All right, Sue, you won.
Okay.
Any other comments on the motion? Hearing none, I'll just take a vote for the acceptance of this application. Ed Beal.
Bring it back to the screen. Sorry. Yes, I was just trying to confirm the case number. I think we had one thing that showed it as 001, but it's 005.
005, yep. Okay. What was your vote on accepting?
Yes.
Thank you. Gary Anderson?
Yes.
Susan Mooney?
Yes.
Ian McKinnon?
Yes.
Tyler Eaton?
Yes.
Robert Davies?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. So the application is accepted. Now we would hear from the applicant about the application in front of us. Mr. Landry, are you available to speak to this? Can someone unmute him for him?
Hear me all right?
There we go.
Okay.
We got you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, again, Peter Landry, representing Sarah Evans, who's in attendance tonight. As Steph said, this is a pretty straightforward lot line adjustment. It's not a subdivision. We're starting with 2 lots. We're ending with 2 lots. We're exchanging back land. It's vacant now. There are no improvements on that land. There may be trails and such, but no improvements. Sarah Evans owns the property, both the properties that we're talking about, and she's essentially exchanging the 28 acres from one parcel to another, leaving a slightly larger than 12-acre parcel remaining with the idea that that lot would qualify for a current use taxation. Just a couple of clarifications. I noticed the application was noticed correctly with the correct lot numbers. The plan review has lot 6A-1. I don't know if that's important to the board, but I believe that should be lot 6-1 as it was noticed. So I think it's just a typo. The other thing, I'm not sure, but if I'm the applicant as it's posted, then I think my address is clearly underneath Landry's survey. If the applicant is Sarah, we could clarify her address on here. Certainly we'll add the surveyor's stamp and my signature to the final plans. There's another notation, which I'm not aware of why anybody would do this, but it says you want the owner's signature. For some reason on the plan, I'm not aware of that. But if that's what you want, we'll put a line there. The last thing, or the third thing is, I'm not sure. I'd like to, I think, Steph, if you're asking what the surface is, I prefer to label it, if you want, gravel surface. If I put gravel road, the registry might apt to index this under Ledge Farm Road and gravel road. And since gravel road is not the town road, I prefer to put gravel surface if that's what you're looking for.
That's fine with me. Yep.
Yeah. And then the other, I think it goes to the next page. It talks about a wetland scientist stamp. There isn't any wetland scientist involvement, so we won't have that stamp on this plan. And of course, it's not mentioned, but as standard procedure, I will be providing you with the monumentation certificate. For the one rebuy, we have to set required that's online, that point online. So we'll supply you with the monumentation certificate. That's it on my end.
Okay. Any questions or comments from the board?
I just had one question. It's mostly just, I was just curious looking at the plan. Is the map 58 lot 8, is the stone wall shown? Is that the boundary and it's essentially a landlocked lot with only access via an easement?
Okay. Which lot are you talking about? 58
lot, looks like, or is that lots? Is that lot 8 or lot 6? That's kind
lot
of
8. The one that's kind of in the backside, away from Ledge Farm Road.
It's just to the right, plan right of 6-1A.
Yep.
I just saw the designation of lot 58 or map 58 lot 8, and it has the same Sarah Evans owner. And then
okay. Sorry about that. I finally caught up to you. That's another lot. That's a separate lot.
Okay.
We're not survey. It's not part of the survey, so it's in a butter.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
That's
So
why
that stone wall. Yeah, that stone wall is the property line. I had it off and it looked funny, so I put it back on, but I didn't. It's not labeled with bearings and distances because we're not surveying that lot.
Sure. No, I just want to make sure it was a lot. I wasn't sure. Thank you.
It's a separate lot.
Okay.
Yes. Yep.
And then one point of clarification. So this part of Ledge Farm Road appears to be a scenic road. We didn't notice this as such, but this case, since there's no new driveways proposed or anything like that, doesn't appear to meet the requirements of the RSA for notification of that. But just to make clear, that this is a scenic road. The provision does not seem to be required for purpose of boundary line adjustment per RSA 674-53. But future development or removal of scenic features, may require additional approval if any of that is proposed. And then that would require.
Yep. Yeah, that's correct. Thanks, Ed.
And then I kind of had the same kind of question. So I know the two middle lots there, 6-1A and lot 8, aren't involved in this. and there's a note on there, and I think it's in the deeds now on 6A, that there's a release of access easements. But the way these 4 properties are now, wouldn't meet zoning. So I don't know if there's a way for us at this point to address that and get clarification or get some of these accesses terminated, because you have 2 driveways serving 4 lots.
We're not changing it. We're not doing anything with the existing driveways.
I understand, but this is a chance where we're changing lots and changing lot.
We're not really changing anything. There's already houses on the lot and there's already driveways.
Correct.
I
think we need to address it and at least recognize it, and maybe we do nothing, but I think it needs to be at least voiced that the way it is right now is non-conforming. And
what's making this non-conforming?
You have 2 driveways serving at least 4 lots. So our zoning ordinance says that shared driveways, common driveways can only serve two dwellings or two lots. So like, I don't know if the one that's on 6A where it says the release of access easements where that's been terminated, if those access points to lot 6-1A was supposed to be discontinued, or if that's a paper termination only.
Okay, well, specifically to that question, the release you're referring to, what happened was it was at one point that lot in the middle that's now Keeney 6-1A, they had right away through both of these 2 lots from either direction. So when we went through a lot line adjustment a few years ago with this board, as a result of that meeting and subsequent deed conveyances, they went through this process and by rights tried to clarify all these easements that we're talking about now. Every one of them has been existing, for as long as these lots have been around. So we're not, even tonight, we're not really addressing any of that. We're not creating any new lots. And the accesses that you're talking about, they don't have anything to do with the transfer land that we're moving around. So I don't really, if it's a zoning issue, we must be pre-existing, because we're not proposing any changes to the driveways at this point. So I'm just a little unclear of your point or your position that that we've somehow created a zoning problem.
Yeah, I guess I tend to agree. I'm not sure what the zoning issue would be here for the lot line adjustment. Even if they are non-conforming, they're existing non-conforming, and it's not making it any different than it is now with this lot line adjustment.
I also think it can be said that they're not going to be made more non-conforming, right? So that if there was something else being proposed that is non-conforming, that's additional, that would be
that's a good point. That's a good way to verbalize it and to get clarification from Mr. Landry. So basically what's being proposed, in your opinion, is not making it more non-conforming or changing the conformity at this point, correct?
Absolutely, that's correct. We're not even addressing any of the existing easements. That's right.
Okay. Other comments? Well, given that there isn't anything moving around on the ground other than maybe a iron pin, it's mostly, legal.
And just one other question, Mr. Landry had mentioned, so I know we did have this, or some lot line adjustments done on this previously. There's nothing still outstanding from those, either lot line adjustments. I think anything beyond a lot line adjustment was withdrawn. So I don't think there was any subdivisions or anything.
Just, I think what we did is we did a lot line adjustment. Looks
2019?
like it's in 2015.
Yeah.
Plan note 8. Then we were proposing we did come to you after that and we proposed a subdivision, Ed. So and then you wouldn't accept the subdivision application until the owner transferred the deeds and made it right from the previous lot line adjustment of 2015. So that's, I think, maybe what you referred to. That all got taken care of. We came to the subdivision, in front of the board to talk about a subdivision, then we withdrew it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the deeds have been recorded since for that lot line adjustment, I believe, correct?
The lot line adjustment is recorded, and yes, and then this lot line adjustment takes into account the new deeds that were made as a result of that 2015 lot line adjustment.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you.
Any other member with a comment or question for the applicant? All right, this seeming pretty straightforward. Is there a motion?
Did you want to open public comment?
Oh, I guess we do have to do that. And that's fine. Maybe there's some more comments. Let me open the public hearing. Anybody wishing to comment to, for, or against this application, please direct those questions or comments to the board. Anyone with hands raised or anything you noticed there, Steph? I don't see anything. Let me say it for a final time. Any public wishing to speak to, for, or against this application, just indicate. Okay. Seeing and hearing none, I'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the board for action.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve case number 21-005-LLA.
Is there a second?
I'll second. It's Mr. Beal.
It's a motion and a second. Any other discussion with the board? And let me take a vote. Ed Veal?
Yes.
Gary Anderson?
Yes.
Susan Mooney?
Yes.
Ian McKinnon?
Yes.
Tyler Eaton?
Yes.
Robert Davies?
Yes.
Chair votes yes.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Mr.
Good
Landry.
evening. Yep. Take care.
All right. Let me switch a couple things over on my screen. We'll next hear the continued case 20-009 SUB. This is an application from Marilyn and Jeffrey Cole requesting to subdivide 31.18 acres into 6 lots, 2 commercial lots on Route 4, 1 residential lot on Smoke Street, 3 residential lots on Kennard. Kennard Road is a scenic road. Property has frontage on Route 4, Smoke Street, and Kennard in Nottingham. Is identified as tax map 6, lot 16. And we have heard this case in the past, and the last meeting that I was aware of, we had a couple of items that were just held over to get cleaned up. And I guess just want to check with Steph on the staff review, make sure that those were satisfied.
Yes, so just as far as my staff review goes, I updated that the waivers were passed at the last meeting and added the supporting reports to be referenced in the deed language to a condition of approval. And I will let Scott talk to or speak to the changes to the actual plan that he's made.
Okay, thanks. Scott, are you available?
I am.
Great.
If I could share my screen, I'll just go through the revisions to the plan set.
Great, thanks.
You see those plans?
Yep.
So there was a number of notes that were requested we add to the plan set, and they're shown throughout the plan set. These are the 5 notes. One was about utilities, all the utilities being underground. All driveway locations be approved by the road agent. And when we did our sidewalk, there was discussion about improvements of the drainage swale along Kennard Road, which will be approved, reviewed and approved by the road agent. All the driveways will be gravel. And then the last note is per the fire department review, where in lieu of a cistern, these houses will be sprinkled.
Okay.
In addition to that, he added, let me get to the sheet, added to the plan set, there was, as you noted, this is a scenic road, so we had to note the trees. We went out and located the trees and have shown them on the sightline plan, when I can get to it. So this is actually, that's the second. This is lot 16-2 and 16-3. So it is the common driveway. This is the land, the trees clearing. There's only one tree being cleared for that within the right of way. It's a small 8-inch hemlock. And then the second driveway was the one when we did our site walk, was obvious that there was more trees because there's a curve, as you see on the plan to the left, coming around. So the sight line, we are removing all the trees with the X's and the red circles within the right of way. And then the last revision to the plan was there was a test pit missing, or there was 2 test pits on the commercial lot, but we had to do one more to meet the requirement of 2 within the 30,000 square feet. We performed that test pit and have placed that on sheet. Let me get to it. On sheet 5, we show the test pit on the lot, and we added the log to the plan set. Also, since the last meeting, we submitted to New Hampshire DES. It's under review. They had 1 comment. I resubmitted that yesterday. We should have that anytime. And that approval is only for 2 of the lots that are under 5 acres, which is 16-4 and 16-2. And I believe those are all the additions that were requested through staff's review and the comments at the site walk and planning board. We do have one other thing that we'd like to talk to the board about tonight. When the builder, Jeff's been out there looking at the lots, and there's some trees within the 50-foot setback, which we have now designated as no cut. There's a few tall pines along the lot on Smoke Street that are very tall and leaning towards the buildable area, and he would like to ask permission to remove those trees and not remove the stumps or anything, but just to remove the tall pines so they don't provide it, and they don't want to present a hazard to any house that may be built on that lot. And I believe he is one of the phone numbers that is on here tonight that he could speak to more if needed.
Any idea of total number and how far into that potential no cut zone there that might go?
Are you available to speak to that? I believe he's 895-5470.
Yeah, is it like a stand of trees, or is it, like they're individual pines that are kind of sentinels and
as far as hopefully he'll come on, but as far as I know, there's just a couple or 2 or 3 of them. Okay.
I'm here now, guys.
Okay, go ahead.
This is Jeff Cole. What's the question?
What are the trees? There were some trees that might pose a hazard to the buildable area. They were indicated as some tall pines. Do you know roughly how many there are?
Yeah, there's probably 4 to 5 of them. They're not in the wetlands. They're probably 25 feet or so within that no-cut zone. Mm-hmm. And I was out there speaking with the New Hampshire forestry guy. He agreed the same thing, that they should be removed.
Yeah.
And they are within striking distance of the lot that's on Smoke Street. And we wouldn't be going in there with any equipment. He stated that. Just go in and tip them out with a chainsaw and pull them back up out of the area.
I think specifically in this case where it would pose a safety issue, my inclination, and I'll have the rest of the board chime in, is to allow him to take down those dangerous trees within that cut zone.
Some of those trees are well over 120 feet tall, and they're probably 2.5 feet at the butt. So they're pretty tall tree, and then they definitely would do some damage to a home if they ever fell over.
It seems.
And again, the 50-foot no-cut zone, we're probably maybe 30 feet from the within the no-cut zone. They're not deep into the wetlands, and we're not going in there with any equipment. No skidders. Just a man with a chainsaw, dropping them, tipping them back out, and we'd pull them back out of the area of the excavator. We'd leave the stumps. Wouldn't touch any stumpage or nothing.
Mr. Chairman, I would also agree. It makes a lot of sense.
We can make that as a condition of that of approval, that those trees that were discussed with the forester can be removed in those no-cut zone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it feels reasonable, especially when you're clearing, an area, that's outside the no-cut zone, though, that they can make those trees even more perilous than that. Now they don't have a buffer to them from wind. So if the New Hampshire Forester has already been consulted, and it's their recommendation as well, and they're doing it in the least impactful way possible, I think that's reasonable, especially given the number of half a dozen or so.
Yep.
Yep, I have to agree. This is Susan. I have to agree.
Okay. All right. So if those are the primary items, we have most of those conditions currently met, but we also have the other standard conditions of approvals, making sure we get the state permits and Mylar stamped, signed, etc. And then we'll have also condition of approval for those tall pine trees. Any other items that the board feels that should be made a condition at this point? And Steph and Joanna, I guess, does that match up with what we have currently in our notes of conditions?
The only additions that I have from the standard conditions of approval are the deed reference and the trees that we just discussed.
Okay. And the deed reference was the same discussion that we had being 50 feet from the Smoke Street. Was that what we were talking about? For the deed language? Sorry, you'll have to remind me.
That was something that we talked about the last meeting that this was discussed at. So not this past meeting, but the meeting before. I believe it was it in reference to a historic or wetland animals? I think Sue and Ed had that conversation.
Right. Yeah, there was some threatened species just off of this property, and the report was going to be, referenced in the deed.
If I could just add one thing on that, we did add. It's up on the screen now. We did add the brochures from Fish and Game onto the plan set.
Oh, great. Okay.
But not on the pages that would get recorded, correct?
Correct. They're the colored brochures. So.
Okay, so I guess, what are we doing with the deed? Are we including anything? Or are we showing it on the plan, and is the board okay with that? I guess Sue or Ed, you guys were the ones that brought this point up before. Okay with informing the builder and the owners of having it in the plan set?
Yes, I really encourage that, because once we sign off on it, there's no way to communicate with people who build the houses, live in the houses, sell the houses. So having a paper trail on these protected species, I support that 100%.
Okay. So we'll have it in the plan set, which he's just showed us.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So I entertain a motion for approval based on those conditions.
Mr. Chairman, it's Mr. Veal. I move that we approve case 20-009-SUB with conditions previously mentioned to include plan copies with professional seals and signatures, surveyor and wetland scientist, original Mylar with professional seals and signatures, electronic submission per regulations as built or plans, all fees paid, the state permits, curb cut and subdivision permits are received, and monumentation set, and with the additional allowance for the applicant to remove the half dozen or so dangerous pines on the lot mentioned tonight.
Okay.
Pretty long motion. Sorry.
It's all right.
Did you also include a note about the threatened species, Ed?
They're showing it in the plans.
Okay.
He already has them on there. I don't.
Correct. I did not, because of the.
I've got a question.
Sure, I'll second that if nobody else does.
This is Buzz. I have a question on the motion.
Yes.
Do we need any kind of documentation on the forester recommending the tall pine cutting?
Like qualifications or?
No, I mean, the pines are not technically, they're in the no-cut area. So do we need documentation that some professional has said that they should be cut? If we don't, we don't. I'm just asking the question.
I guess even with or without a forester, I mean, if the trees are in danger, I guess we haven't looked at them. I guess I'd ask the applicant if they could provide a memo or something from the forester just indicating those trees to get removed.
Yeah, I could always get in contact with them. I mean, just, don't want you guys to assume I'm just making this up, but that's what he told me.
Okay.
And I certainly can get some documentation on it if that's what you require.
Yeah, that would be helpful. We'll just have that in our paper
I mean,
trail.
you all got to agree it makes sense to not have a 120-foot pine tree come down on a new home built. They should be removed.
Absolutely.
So, Mr. Veal, I'll amend my motion to include the requirement that we be provided with something from a certified forester to support the removal of said pine trees in the no-cut area.
And I will still second.
Okay. Any other discussion? We'll vote on this. Ed Veal?
Yes.
Gary Anderson?
Yes.
Susan Mooney?
Yes.
Ian McKinnon?
Yes.
Tyler Eaton?
Yes.
Robert Davies?
Yes.
And chair votes yes. So that's conditional approval.
Thank you.
Yep. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to our fourth and last case for the evening. This is case 21-003 SIT. It's an application from Tammy DeFrancesco, trustee of Kubota Trust, requesting approval of a watercross event to be held 3 times a year starting in 2021. Property is located at 214 Raymond Road in Nottingham, identified as tax map 69, lots 8 and 10. We have received already previously the application. That application was accepted. And I'm saying that in hesitant because I don't have it up on my screen yet. Is that correct, Steph?
Correct. We accepted it as complete.
All right. Right. Accepted it as complete. We voted that it would be a regional impact. Notification went out to the planning boards, planning commissions, and let me just, Steph, if you can just update us on, I guess, that the report, the review.
Sure. So yeah, so the development of regional impact was voted on, and we renoticed for the abutting communities and the corresponding regional planning commissions, which was Stratford and Rockingham. There was an additional renotice due to some returned mailed noticing. So we just wanted to make sure that went through officially. So we renoticed and continued again. The only things that I wanted to note was that it was brought to my attention that this property is within the aquifer protection zone. So I did want to note that, as well as a note that said that the property is not within the FEMA 100-year floodplain area. My GIS says that it is. So I just wanted Scott to address that, or maybe the applicant. Additionally, some things that I added were, and these are not required by our regulations, but I would be interested and encourage the board to think about the need for an emergency and safety plan, use of alcohol on the site, and just address any nighttime noise if that were to be an issue. Other than that, I think that everything else is reference and note based that I'm sure Scott can speak to.
Okay. Yeah, I have a couple things to add to that. So in the public comment period, we have received a number of comment letters, and I guess from other agencies and communities. I can go through some of those a little bit later after we hear from the applicant, but the Rockingham Regional Planning Commission did request that we coordinate coordination happen between the event organizer and emergency services of a traffic plan prior to the event. Stratford Regional Planning Commission also provided some comment, and I'll just note that all of these comments are available on the town's website in the planning department, so these are readily available for any public to review. I'm just summarizing a couple things. The Regional Impact Committee could not convene at this time, but they did list a couple of impacts that should be at least reviewed, none of which we're concluding would be a major impact. The town of Epping Planning Board provided notice back to that potential noise impacts for the Blake Road area in Epping. Aside from that, the board sees no impact for this proposal. The town of Raymond provided input. It was discussed at a recent planning board meeting, the concerns of the aquifer protection and noise pollution. The kind of final summation, it was determined that no Raymond-wide impacts were expected. And then I'll kind of summarize some of the public input when we get to the public comment period. I guess I'd turn to the applicant for any updates that they may have or questions to be answered from the board.
I can go through a few things, and then I think Tammy would like to speak to a couple things. But first, Scott Frankos from New Hampshire Land Consultants. If I could share my screen, I can't remember at the in February we showed the plans or not in a while, but I'll share my screen again and show the plans. Can everybody see that plan?
Yes.
So the events would happen on this man-made excavated pond that's been a part of this gravel pit, I think, and Tammy can correct me if I'm wrong, since like 1958. There is no outlet, it's self-contained. The whole event happens within this area here. It doesn't, nothing comes out here. This is part of the gravel operation. And then the third page within the set shows how the event would be laid out. There's parking where my hand is right now. I'll back up a little bit. The entrance to the site is here. It's paved until you get over the paved up to the house, and then it turns to gravel as you head out into the gravel pit. The parking during the event is within this area, and then over here is where the campers would stay. It's dry camping, no facilities. The facilities that would be provided are porta potties, which are noted as the PPs. And then VA is for vendors. There's a couple places for vendors, 3 places. And then the announcer's booth is here. Spectators along the shore of the pond. And this area is overflow. This is where the majority of the spectators will hang out. There is an ambulance that's on site at every event, and a police at the last events police detail were parked over here. In this area on the east side of the pond is the pit area where the racers and their crew stay and prep for the race. And the races start approximately here, and they go around the pond. I think they have a couple different races. They do the oval, and then I think they do a drag race too, straight across the pond. And one of the comments that came up was about the floodplain, and I believe Tammy can speak more to it, but I believe they received a letter of map amendment, which, if you're familiar with that, it's through FEMA and you have to apply for that. I'm not sure what that applies to, but she has said that they have that. And that's about the whole site. I can talk more to the function of the events if you like, and the hours, but I think we've spoken about that already.
Okay, if you don't mind, could you just go through the hours for the public that are probably listening at this point, and kind of the operation,
Sure.
Operational hours, and how many days, and what are the planned 3 events?
Yeah. So currently the hopeful 3 events are in May, I believe June or July, and then September. And the way the events work, Fridays they show up at 4 to 6 to practice. Everything's shut down. And then on Saturday it's 10 to 6. They race. Everything's shut down at 6. No night noise. No racing after 6 o'clock. And then on Sunday again from 12 to 6, and it would conclude at 6 on Sunday night. Again, this is one in the spring, one in the summer, and one right at the beginning of fall is the way it's planned if it's approved. She expects to about have about 1,000 spectators come through the 3 days, or really the 2 days when spectators are there. There's about 100 racers and crew members, and then they have 20 to 25 volunteers helping out with the event as it goes on, parking people, accepting tickets. And like I said, there is a police detail there. There is also rescue. And I did attend one last year, and Fish and Game was there at the same time too, which she has to communicate with about these events.
Okay. I'd like to open it to the board to see if there are any comments and questions for the applicant.
Mr. Chair, I've got, oh, Susan, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry. I just got a communication recently from Sam Demerit, who is a member, he's the chair of the Lamprey River Watershed Association. And he thought that this application should be run by the Lamprey River Advisory Committee, where this area is in the Lamprey River Watershed. The Pawtuckaway River is a fourth order protected stream by the state, including the wetlands, and this is an area that abuts the proposed event area. So I would just like to pass that on to Steph to see what her take is on possibly running this by the Lamprey River Advisory Committee.
I honestly don't know what their jurisdiction is.
Well, they are a working arm of New Hampshire DES Wetlands Bureau. Okay. And for developments that impact wetlands, they are the boots on the ground group that look at the plans and pass judgment or make comments.
Okay. Yeah, I am aware, and the applicant probably can confirm this, but I do believe that both Fish and Game and DES, they currently have permits.
Okay, so DES has been involved then.
That's what I believe, but I'll let the applicant confirm that. Because it's an active gravel mine, so they have to have reporting and permits to do that.
Even though it's a created wetland, it is a wetland. So it come under the DES Wetlands Bureau's jurisdiction. Yeah,
and again, the applicant can confirm this, but I thought at a previous meeting they indicated that the pond itself is not deemed a wetland. Even though it's water, it's not deemed a wetland.
I see.
But the area around the pond, I believe this area is in the Shoreline Water Quality Protection Area designation. I don't know if this impacts that designation at all or comes into play. But in where you mentioned DES, I know Fish and Game has a permit process for it. DES regulates gravel pit operations, but I don't know if DES has been involved at all in the additional usage of it, and if they should be. But I think the applicant could probably speak towards that.
Yeah.
Scott, can you provide us a little bit more information on that, Scott?
DES is involved, of course, with the alteration of terrain permit for the gravel pit, which Tammy just got renewed. And Fish and Game, I believe, had to give her a permit to even have these events. I don't know how good the communication is between departments at the state. So I can't speak to directly if Wetlands Bureau was notified or not, but Tammy may be able to speak to that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I don't know that either. I just know that the state said that the Fish and Game had notified them, so they're aware. That's why we had provided them with this site plan as well, so they could just see where the campers were. Again, it's not a changing of business. We're not trying to make a business year round. We're only doing 3 events 3 times a year is what we're trying to do. So it's not trying to create a huge impact on everything.
And I think one thing, there is no proposed construction with this event. These are just purely events. She has the permit to continue doing her gravel operation, but that will not be active during these events, of course.
Okay. Buzz, I see that you have your hand raised. Sorry if it's been up for a little bit.
That was an error.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, you mind if I run through a couple things that notes I had jotted down?
Yes, please.
So some of it's been addressed, but one of the things I kind of want some clarification on was the dry camping. Is that intended to just be a carry in, carry out? Essentially, there'll be no camping services provided. And I did have down here, I was curious about the alcohol policies. I know Steph mentioned that the board should probably have a discussion. I wasn't sure if that was something we take on at this board level or if that's left to the selectmen. One thing, this is, again, I think more of the selectmen, but I know you're showing vendor areas. Is there a limit to, or this might be a question more for other board members, are they going to be dimensionally limited to vendor areas and number of vendors that fit in? I know there was mention of like park swaps and stuff. Sometimes those kind of occur in parking lot areas, which probably would take more than just a tent space. Something to think about. In terms of saying that there's no work proposed under this application, I was focusing on the overflow parking and dry camping area. If we were to, I mean, based on that topography, there would be some degree of earthwork needed to create level, flat camping spots for that. If that's the intent. I mean, I'm seeing topography changes, and also, is that area included in the disturbance that would be part of the AOT permit? The AOT permit was one thing I mentioned is, has the Alteration of Terrain Bureau at least been notified that this use will be occur? Just because I know they might need to amend their language or make note of it on their end.
Where the campers are is on lot 8, so it's not on the pit permit part. It's on my own property, like where the house is. So the campers,
okay, so then
the lot line is separate.
Okay.
That's why we added lot 8 and 10. So altogether there's 90 acres, but where that camping line, where that line goes through, that back line goes into the residential part. So it's actually really on a different part. It's not in the pit property. It's on my residential property.
So is that, do we know, is that considered a residential use on lot 8?
Yes.
Technically?
Technically, yeah. So we're just asking for them to, instead of having them going in and out all weekend long to create any more traffic with trailers pulling in and out, it's easier if they just stay there. It's mostly just the racers and their families that stay.
Yep.
Dry camping, they literally just hook up to nothing. They use the porta potties, they use the bathroom facilities. Emmy's porta potty from Nottingham comes and empties it as much as she needs to.
Okay.
We have a lot of them. And then other than that, they just usually really just lay their head and sleep on. And there's no,
Okay.
we don't offer any services for camping, and there's no fires and nothing like that.
Okay. I guess then it kind of develops then if we look at that as being located on lot 8, that's not considered part of the commercial use of the sandpit lot, but yet essentially that's a commercial use on the residential property. Does that need to be clearly laid out in this application as like essentially a change of use from a residential to, even though it's camping?
But it's not going to be, it's not a full-time thing. Again, it's only a few times a year. Just like if I had
I understand. It's just it's technically this is still a change of use on the property, whether it's an event, it's not a residential. So it's a question, this might be a question more for Dirk, if this is just a procedural that needs to be referenced, that it is, lot 8 is a residential lot that will now be utilized, even if it's only for 3 times a year. I just want to make sure it's spelled out in any future approval or the application that essentially is a commercial use on, in my opinion, be a commercial use on the residential, and that just needs to be part of the approval.
Just to answer that, try and answer that, Ian. We don't have a precedence. We don't really have really a good direction other than we requested that this, and it would require a site plan approval, you know, through our board. And big part of that is that our board would then require all the abutters to be notified. I mean, previously it had been at the Board of Selectmen, but they don't notify abutters. So this was all certified notification of those abutters to kind of come up with any comments and let them know about this. But both lots are under this application. So we should assume that this is a temporary use for the duration of these events, and it would run for, you know, both of these properties, even though the gravel area is a commercial area, a commercial enterprise. It still is in a residential agricultural zone.
Yeah.
Derek, can I say one thing? Is that lot 8 used to be the commercial part of it. So lot 8 at one time, the 40 acres was the whole gravel pit, the house area and everything was the whole thing. When we got it back in 2010, and we had to get the additional piece that goes over towards Epping, then that created lot 10. And then the pit part became part of lot 10. So technically, I don't really know if lot 8 or lot 10 is designed to be designated to be residential or commercial, because the whole thing was all the 40-acre pit from the very beginning, from the 70s. It was the 40 acres was originally the house, the area where the campers are, and the pond area. And when they added that additional 65 acres to the whole property, the lot line just kind of changed. So it was a lot line adjustment. So I don't really know where the boundaries lie as far as it being residential portion or commercial. I don't know.
And that brings up a good point, Mr. Chairman, and this is Mr. Beal. And this is one of the things that I was kind of curious about, is the existing use that's there now, is that a permitted non-conforming use? Is it an existing non-conforming use, or is it, you know, or is it approved for that? Do we know in our own records for the board, or you know, the gravel pit part of it, you know, what that is, if that's just a pre-existing non-conforming use, because I believe this pit dates back before zoning.
Yeah, I mean, it would, for it to be a current, under the current regulations, if someone was to come in and have a gravel pit, and then, yeah, they would be before this board for that, and the zoning board for a change of use. This was prior to those regulations, so it is allowed, and there's no, you know, sunset time on that, as long as it's, you know, maintained as that commercial lot. So, you know, this is a pre-existing condition. Whether it's conforming or non-conforming, you know, would have to be, you know, reviewed in its dimensional properties and whether it is conforming or non-conforming.
Correct. So but the parent parcel then, regardless, it's not that that parent parcel is somehow carved out into commercial. It's that it's approved for the current use.
It's the use
of a gravel pit.
Yeah.
So any additional use for that lot and any commercial use of lot 8 potentially would require a variance, because it's not within the usage, unless we determine it is, of the residential agricultural zone, which is what this falls into.
Yes, but my understanding is that this is a temporary use. It's an event use, not in such that would be a standard change of use or permanent use. All of our regulations go to, you know, a permanent use, a change of use. Nothing that has it as temporary.
Well, when does it become permanent? When it's once a year, when it's twice a year, when it's 3 times a year, or when it's every day?
It's not defined.
Correct. I mean, racetracks in general. So if you have this as a racetrack, which I get would have a structure, often aren't year round. They're seasonal. They may only have a couple a year, but those are commercial ventures. And this is being proposed as a commercial venture, I believe.
Yeah, but it's different because a racetrack is a racetrack, right? It's permanent.
Right. But there's a change of intensity again. So we're in a residential zone. So the residential agricultural rules apply. The current use of the property is for a gravel pit. We need to determine if this is, making that more or less conforming, I would think, and then possibly have zoning relief, especially for lot 8, where that's only residential. That doesn't currently have any commercial usage.
But historically, it did. So when did that go away?
I think the applicant mentioned that the lot line adjustment was over 10 years ago. So
I think it was in 2011 or 12. I can't remember exactly. I don't have it in front of me. I think it was maybe 2011.
So I would think that meets the state criteria of abandoning of use. I think it's 4 years or 2 years. So those are some of the questions I had. And then also, since we don't get items like this often, I don't know how much we should delve into, what's there currently, and is it within compliance of what's there? I mean, I see some items on here like maybe it's not theirs, but the rock and asphalt pile that's straddling 2 lines. I don't know if that's part of the gravel pit operations or part of the abutting properties, personal ownership. There doesn't seem to be like really any buffers between properties.
I guess that's out of the scope of this application. I mean, in my opinion, they're applying for an event. I don't know what a pile between 2 properties means to this application.
Well, that's what I'm asking is, so when we get a new application before us, is part of our due diligence to look at how is the lot currently? Is it complying with our zoning? We have requirements for gravel pits that even pre-existing ones should have a reclamation plan on file with the board. I don't know if that exists, and things like that. So again, it may be outside the scope. I don't know. That's why I'm asking the questions, because we don't get these very often, especially with
we haven't had any of these.
Exactly. So
ever. So that's why we're having to find out a process here, and in trying to do that, we're trying to have provide the applicant a path to do this as efficiently as possible. And I don't want to be sending them to all sorts of different boards. So if we need to find some guidance from legal counsel on use, length of use, zoning conformance, then we need to do that within the board and come back with some better information.
Derek, I also think it's important to note too that the Board of Selectmen, parallel to this, will be licensing these events. And I know they're working on that process. So that's kind of the event to event approval, I think, that's where the temporary nature comes in, is that I think they do have to approve on each event, not just all 3.
Tyler, can you speak to that? I guess I'm confused a bit. So,
can you say that again?
What's the licensing process that this event is going through at the select board?
Well, there's no license. We came up with a licensing policy here at the last meeting, and I'll share it with you all. But it's just saying that if people hold any kind of event with so many people, they're going to have to pay a fee to the town. But we just did it this past Monday, so as we were speaking, I was just getting ready to send it off to all of you so you could see it.
Okay.
Tyler, does that process include, like, does you as a board of selectmen review the proposal, and can you deny a certain event, or is it just purely you're notifying the town, you pay a fee, and that's your license?
Yeah, I mean, we have some say in it because as the events, if they're larger or whatever, where it calls for, as we were talking here tonight about police details, evacuation plans and all that. So it's all written out in there. I'll forward it to you guys here.
Okay.
Okay. And Mr. Chair, just so I can get my last two in, and then I'll kind of leave it open. Well, just a question more to the applicant, Mr. Frankowicz. Is there a need to consult DOT on this because of the number of vehicles? I don't know if we know that, or if it's been asked. The question's been asked. I don't know if there's an existing driveway permit for this use, but it is an increase in daily trips. I know that was mentioned, I believe, in the regional impact report by SRPC. And then the only other thing is, I know we did receive a fire department review letter. I'm just hoping that we can receive a report or memo from the police department, because I know they were there at each event last year. I'm curious.
We did receive information from the police department. If that wasn't shared, then it probably should have been.
Yeah, I only see the.
I had communication with our police chief, and I'll just summarize what I remember with that conversation was, they had police detail on site. They did not feel the traffic was a significant impact with what was coming in and out, the volumes anyway. There were no queues, backups on 156 on Raymond Road, and people came in and were easily, were able to get back out. It wasn't a big thrust of people all at one time. It happened over a period of time, so they were monitoring it, and there. They did request that, I think there was 2 details that were requested to be at this event, and if there is an event in the future.
Okay. Yeah, so I think in closing with my comments, the only area that I'm still somewhat hung up on is that overflow parking and dry camping area on Lot 8, partially because I do still think that there will need to be earth movement in that area. And I just want to confirm that it wouldn't exceed the 30,000 square feet. That's kind of where I was going with that, is there is the 30,000 square feet where now sediment and erosion control and stormwater is needed. So it's just something I just want, hopefully Mr. Frankowicz can just confirm approximate sizes, and just so we can be assured that there isn't going to be significant earthwork required in that area. But that's all I got. Thank you.
Okay. Any other board member
Mr.
with
Chair?
Comments? Yes.
We do have a hand raise from Brett Allard. I'm not sure if that's a hand raise for a public comment or if he's part of the applicant's team.
He is the attorney for the applicant.
Okay.
Yeah,
Do
please
you want to hear
unmute.
from him?
Yep.
Okay.
If it's from the applicant, we're representing the applicant. We're more than happy to hear it. Welcome, Mr. Allard.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chairman, members of the board. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. I just wanted to make a couple, again, Brett Allard with Bernstein Shire, legal counsel for the applicant. I just wanted to touch base real quickly on the questions regarding the use of the properties and potential zoning relief. I think one thing that hasn't been discussed tonight, and I think one way the board could possibly look at it to keep things at the planning board, which we think is the right way to go here, is that this can really be considered an accessory use to what's already there. So to the extent that the camping is on the residential portion of the property, I think that could be considered a permitted accessory use. And to the extent that the racing commercial aspect is already on the commercial lot, it could be considered an accessory use to what's already there. So under New Hampshire law, to be an accessory use, it's got to be incidental and subordinate to the principal use. Since this is only happening on 3 weekends a year, I think the use is clearly subordinate to the principal uses of each lot. And based on that, we don't think we would need any zoning board approvals. So we think we're in the right place here with the site plan approval, and that's that. So I'm happy to answer any questions. I just want to make sure that we got our 2 cents in on that before the board moved on to different subjects.
No, I appreciate that, and I think that's maybe that's a good way to address this. I can see how that would fit.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Yes.
Go ahead, Susan.
I'd like to back up a little bit and revisit the Pawtuckaway River Protected River Program. This river that comes out of Pawtuckaway Lake, it falls under Chapter 483, and it is mentioned in 483:15, Pawtuckaway River as a rural river from immediately downstream of Pawtuckaway Lake Dam in Nottingham to the confluence with the Lamprey River in Epping. And looking at the site map that's provided on my paper copy, it looks as though this particular river is right on the edge of the proposed activities. I myself would be very comfortable with having some eyes looking at the situation, the siting of the river and the proposed activities to see what there might be for impacts and make recommendations. So again, I'm going to suggest, as Sam Demerit recommended, that this proposal be reviewed by the Lamprey River Advisory Committee, an arm of DES Wetlands Bureau.
I could mention a couple things.
Go ahead, Scott.
On the site plan, there is a berm, and I think it probably was put there when they originally started their excavation over here. There is a berm that runs along the entire length of that river that's adjacent to the pond. So there is protection there for the river as well as sound going in that southwest direction and towards the kind of northwest direction. And this is just an aerial of the site.
So the river's disconnected from the pond.
Yeah, there's no outlet with the pond. It's a man-made pond, no outlet. It's self-contained. And there's the berm along the river.
And also to back up to Sue's point regarding the Lamprey River, I know that as part of alteration of terrain permitting, you're required to notify the river committee, but unless this is deemed a modification to that permit, I don't know, I don't know how we can require an application to go to the committee if the AOT permit's already been granted. I just didn't know if that, a point of procedure, I just don't know if that can happen.
But the DOT is not is not the permitting agency for impacting wetlands. So
DES. Yeah, that's
right.
What he meant.
Alteration of terrain requires it, and they're a department within DES. But if there's no modifications to a DES permit, I don't know if there were. It's just not a legal requirement to go to the river committee if there's no modification to or modification to or a new DES permit.
But the DES permit is as far as I understand it, I don't have a copy of it, and that might be a good thing to get us a copy of that. It is for them to operate a gravel pit. So that permit allows them to dig gravel right along the same bank of this river. So they have approval to do that. But I guess I see that as a much more intrusive impact than, you know, having snowmobiles on the water without, you know, grading impacts.
No, I agree. And I think because I know you do have to go for I don't know if it's every 5 years for the gravel permit for AOT. I'm sure AOT would have required that visit to the river committee if they did deem it needed, at least in their eyes.
Yeah, I guess I'd ask the applicant if they can provide us with that DES permit.
I can speak to that briefly. We are speaking with Beth Ann up there. We did send her the site plan set. Okay. Fortunately, they're so backed up, we haven't heard back from her.
Yeah.
On it.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I just had a couple things to touch on.
Sure. Go ahead, Gary.
And so Mr. Owlett actually answered my first one, where I was kind of really questioning about just whether this is how this is considered a temporary use or not. But as an accessory use to what's there, that somewhat answered my question. Putting that aside for a second, what I see as the bigger concern would be the noise, which I know we've heard a little about. And so one is the noise of the actual racing. So that's limited by the time span, I guess, per day, by the hours that's happening. But my other question is the campers and the camping and who's there and that noise, that's just another question mark for me. So just, I would like to hear that possibly addressed.
Does the applicant have a reaction to that?
Noise. Again, Brett Allard, Bernstein Chair. There is, Scott, do you want to pull up the plan again, just show where that berm is? Now, there is obviously an inherent level of noise with these types of events that just can't be avoided. But there are several sort of mitigation features. That berm that Scott's pointing out right now should help to contain at least some of the noise from the event. Again, these will be ending by 6 p.m. So there's no nighttime noise, and it's only 3 weekends a year. And I think one really good point that was addressed and pointed out in the Stratford Regional Planning Commission's regional impact review is that this site is an long existing and active excavation operation, which, you know, involves, I think they said as examples, you know, you have trucks coming in and out, excavators, potential blasting. I don't know if there's been any blasting. They put that in the report, but, you know, this is a site that already is, you know, has a certain level of noise associated with it. So we don't think that there's any sort of, you know, adverse noise pollution or permanent adverse effects on the neighborhood to have these events, you know, 3 times a year. And certainly everything's being done to contain the noise. And we think it's, if there's ever a good site for this sort of thing, this is it. So that's our comments on that in a nutshell.
I think that, this is Mr. Beal, I think that the response to that, though, is generally those operations occur Monday through Friday, you know, not Saturdays and Sundays. I'm sure that they could occur, but they probably generally do not. And when you look at this photo that's showing right now is a perfect example. I don't know what all those vehicles are in the back corner of this property, but that's not even on these lots. So I don't know if that's part of this event and that's being utilized as additional parking, or what that area is, and if that should be included in the plan that's before us. it seems like the current processes, and again, if that's not for tonight, it's something the code enforcer can address. But it seems like the use of the properties or in the abutting properties is kind of nebulous, where the lot line isn't being really followed very well.
Can I say something?
Yes, please.
Our neighbor out back, the abutter, is trying to say something, but nobody's letting him talk. He wants to answer some questions about the parking.
Yeah, we're not to the point of public meeting. We're having a discussion with the applicant.
Okay, he was just going to answer about the parking. That's his personal parking on the back with the way back. So I'll get off now.
Okay. So that's parking that's not associated with this application.
Correct.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I just had one other point to make.
Yep.
And that was around food vendors and how that happens, licensing, inspections, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't believe that should be a planning board function. I think that's more of a code enforcement, health officer enforcement.
Okay. Yeah, just a question that came up for me.
I mean, if it comes to, like where dumpsters are located and that sort of thing, yeah, I think a site plan is the appropriate place for that, but
sure.
Operational and even to the point of alcohol serving, that's, in my opinion, would be outside the purview of a site plan approval.
I could speak to those couple things if you'd like me to real quickly.
Sure.
So at the event, it's not shown on this one, but where my hand is here, the Tuckaway Tavern had I guess they've got a portable cart that they bring. They were set up there at the last event, and there is no alcohol served on site.
Okay. All right. I know we have a lot of public waiting, so I do want to just make sure, if the board members has at least some of these questions answered, we can move on to the public hearing, because I'd like to get that going. Okay, so let's move on to that. Before we start in with having public, I do want to just maybe summarize a little bit of the information that we did receive. And maybe I'll just share my screen. I'll grab the screen away from you. So this is basically a summary. I'm trying to get a little bit bigger of the formal letters that we did receive.
Eric, are you trying to share your screen?
Yeah, am I not? Sorry.
I don't see it.
Okay. Thanks. How about
there you
now?
Go. Yep.
Okay, so like I said, we received a number of letters from not only direct abutters, but also people that live in Raymond, in other locations in Nottingham. Really just in a summary, out of the ones that were submitted, there was 3 that opposed this, citing mostly noise. There was one here that noted the noise condition. They are a visitor from Derry who stay at Pawtuckaway State Park, and they just happened to be having their vacation during one of these weekends and found it very disturbing of all of the noise that was happening during their natural vacation. So those were the 3 that we received as opposed. there was a number of them that were in favor. And just in summary, again, some of them were for economic reasons, some of them were enjoyment, you know, a good family activity. And some of these actually wrote because they participated in it. And some feel that it's the right of that property owner. And there was a joint letter that was signed by, I counted 27 signatures that supported this event. So I wanted to bring those up as factual. I'm not going to read all of the letters into during this meeting. They are on the website. You're more than welcome to go on the website and view those. They are in the record for this application. So by reading them does not, it's just going to take up a couple of hours. There's just a lot of information there. And I would say is before I open up the public meeting is if any of these public that are here, if these are already summarized, you know, please keep your comments as brief as possible. If it does become lengthy, we'll limit people to 2 minutes. And then if there are anybody who, we just ask it not have repeated comments. So, Steph, if you could, let's just see if there's anybody who has their hand raised in the public who would like to speak about this application. Please, public, direct any of that to the board, myself, and we'll request those that information from the applicant.
We have a few hand raises right off the bat. One from Lee Weldy. I'm going to unmute you.
Okay.
Good evening, board. I live at 110 Nottingham Road, Raymond. While the pit has been run by Tammy, I've resided here prior to her taking possession of it. That pit has run up to 7 times a week, Monday through Sunday. Pike used to run a drag line, starting it up at 4:30 in the morning, running their trucks in and out, basically before sunrise and after sunset. I consider the pit a good neighbor as far as my location. I have to agree with what the attorney said about the accessory use hearing that you have another event in your town. You have a car show that's every Tuesday night, which is held on a commercial property and a private property across the street. And they actually, you talk about traffic control, they put cones up with no police presence and have people walking back and forth across the road. Everything is self-contained at the pit as far as the accessory dwelling or accessory use. To my knowledge, Tammy probably has no intentions of digging up her yard where the campers are parking. I've seen them parked. They park around the perimeter. Yes, there is a grade variance, but the people have made the best use of it when they were parking the campers, and the people parked or had the parking people there park them. So while I live close enough, and I am a supporter of the event, this past week, we had a local resident decide to play music extremely loud out their yard. So it's not, you don't have a noise ordinance, so there's really not anything for anyone to complain about. So as far as trying to limit that, her hours of operation, while I haven't been there every day, it hasn't interfered with any type of quality of life I've had or anything that we've had going on at our home. And I'm probably one of the highest people. I can actually see the pit from my property. I can see the pond. So there's little to no buffer, and it does not affect me. Any noise that's coming to me is not coming through the trees. It's coming over, and I don't have an issue with it. I strongly support it, and I think it's a righteous use of her property without hurting anyone. It's a limited amount of time, and I really think that if you do look at the accessory use, you're going to have to look at other events in your town and your community, because every Tuesday when I come home, I have to wait for cars going in and out of the Twombly property, not even associated with Liar's Paradise, and that runs along a river.
All right, I appreciate your comments.
Thank you.
Yep.
We have a hand raised from Kathy Morris. Kathy, I'm going to go ahead and ask to unmute you.
Unmute. I'm done. The last gentleman that spoke may not have a problem with the sound. We're at 212 Raymond Road, right next to the driveway that goes down to 214, which is where this is being proposed. Last year, they were supposed to be done at 6 o'clock. And on a Saturday, they had a thunderstorm. It stopped them for about 2 hours. And then they continued on until 8 o'clock. So they did not stop at 6 o'clock. The next day, they were done after 6. And for the other times that they had it, the other 2 times, they also went beyond 6 o'clock. The noise levels are between 75 and 85 decibels sustained during the race, which is enough to damage hearing and cause a lot of stress and be very uncomfortable for people. I suffer from severe migraines. They're chronic. Been using Botox for migraines to try to help reduce them, but loud noises makes them happen whether I want them to or not. And I can't just get up and leave every time they have a race. And it's not just for one day. It's for 3 solid days. The Friday afternoon when they get there, they're going for several hours. Saturday, they're all the time that they say they're going to. And as I said, they went over the time before. There is no buffer between where we live and the pit. There is no berm, nothing that prevents the sound. And I also am very concerned about what might get into the water table. We are on a well here, and anything that gets into that water will get into the aquifer that feeds our well water. And it doesn't take much for water to move through soil. I have taken the Army Corps of Engineers wetland delineation course, and I'm very well aware about wetlands and how water moves and wetland soils and plants. So I do know that even though that pond is not considered a wetland, what is around the perimeter of it is. And I just think that it needs to be addressed. Also, when Tammy was over here last year, she came over here and met everyone. And she stated she only wanted to make this a one-time thing. She wasn't going to do it every year. And obviously that's not true. And the permits that they had last year were not even appropriate permits. They should have gone through the planning board and not the board of selectmen to get the permits they had. So there's been some underhandedness going on. And I think it's not what you know, it's who you know. And I'm concerned about that very much. I can't leave my home just because they're having a race, but I can't even stay inside and listen to TV. It's that loud. I beg your pardon?
Okay. Yeah, that language is not called for in this meeting. So whoever was unmuted and had that kind of language, please leave this meeting. There'll be none of that in a meeting that I'm supervising here.
Was it just was?
Well, I appreciate your input, and what I would like to do is make sure everybody is muted. That includes board members And then when anyone is called for, we will we'll specifically call them out. Any more of that, and I'll suspend this meeting. Let me address a couple of things.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Oh, I just want to let you know that I removed that participant.
Thank you. What I would like to do is just also bring up a couple of things relative to the noise. My conversations with police chief relevant to noise is that the town does not have a noise ordinance. I think that's clear. We do not have a noise ordinance. The police do not have anything to enforce. So even if you call up for a noise complaint, while they can respond, they have nothing to enforce. They do not have any noise meters. They cannot read decibels. So whenever there are claims of decibel readings, decibel hearings, or distances, all of that data is not confident data. And even if there were some decibel limits put on an event, there is no way to enforce that. So at this point, the town is not equipped to be able to do that. So unless there is a change in the law that provides a noise ordinance, this is what we have to deal with.
Chairman, this is Mr. Veal. I understand we don't have a noise ordinance, but we do specifically call out noise as a preventable pollution in our site plan regulations. And when it comes to commercial uses, it's one of the items that's addressed. So I understand it's not necessarily an ordinance, but it is something that, in my opinion, we're to take into consideration at least. I don't know what we could do with that information, but I think we should at least take steps to work with applicants to mitigate the distance of it and the carryover and such when possible.
Yeah, I don't disagree, Ed. I think it's more the sense that we really don't have an ordinance. We don't, you say a noise level, but what is a noise level that is acceptable to the public? There's plenty of thresholds out there, but what is noise pollution? That our regulation currently is very subjective. So that's all I want to say. I know these are very loud machines. They are heard throughout the community when they are going. So I just want to point out that from our enforcement, the town really doesn't have a lot of standing on that. The state may be able to do something, but we just aren't equipped with any of that. Let me go on to maybe the next point here. And Mr. Weldy, I do see that your hand is still raised. I will hold off until you've had your kind of 2 minutes. If there are some new comments, we'll wait until the end. But I'd like to give everybody the opportunity that does want to speak ahead of you. So Steph, if you could.
Next we have.
Yeah.
Yep. Sorry. Next we have Kelly Lapoint.
Go ahead, Kelly.
Go ahead. Ask to unmute her.
Okay. Actually, this is Grace Lapointe. I'm Kelly Lapointe's mom, and I live with Kelly. We live at 212 Raymond Road, so we're in the condos right in front of the pit. And I just have to say that we are opposed to the approval of these events. Basically, it's the noise level. It's not the traffic or anything. It's the noise. It goes on for the whole weekend. It's very loud. And, at the beginning of this meeting, there was talk about impact statements and, how much this noise impacts Raymond, or the event impacts Raymond, or how much it impacts Epping. We are Nottingham residents, and we're saying in these condos, it impacts us. basically, my daughter's been living here for 10 years. She's owned this condo, and I've been living here for 3 years. And when you live in a residential area, I guess you expect it to remain that way. You know, there hasn't been a problem with noise up until this point, but to have something and, you know, events happening, and the whole process of planning this was done without even our knowledge. All of a sudden, there were these events taking place, and there's a comparison. I guess the attorney, I'm sorry, I forget his name, but you know, he said that these are the gravel pits, and that there's been noise from the gravel pits. And my daughter has experienced it for 10 years. I have for 3 years. You cannot even compare these two. And anybody who speaks to it should have knowledge of the difference between, yes, we hear the trucks going in and out, but like I said, you cannot compare that. Another comparison that was made was at one of these other Zoom meetings, somebody talked about, you know, when people that live in this area also live by a lake, and, you know, there are the jet skis and the boats, but the thing is that when you buy property by a lake, you kind of expect that, you know that you're going into an area where these things do exist. When my daughter bought this condo, when I moved in here, we did not expect this to happen. And as I said, you know, for anybody to come out and just listen to the noise levels, they're just way over normal. And that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you very much for your comment. If somebody else would like to speak?
Yep. The next person is only identified as iPad. So when I unmute you, please state your name and your address.
Hi. Yeah, my name is Jennifer Menard. I live at 166 Raymond Road. I'm a resident of Nottingham, have been one since 97. I live across from one of the lake inlets. I live down the street, less than a mile from the site where the proposed drags are. I don't have an issue with it. I'll say that up front. And the reason is, during the day, there's going to be noise. During the day, there's going to be heavy traffic. In the summer, we have a ton of it. So there's constant noise with that. We have the constant noise on the lake, the visitors coming, the kids at night. You know, that's going to be part of a vacation area with the lake houses, with the state park. I like the idea that they're trying to create a family event to give people something to do, especially after the past year. And also, I hear Star Speedway. I can hear the Lee Speedway. I mean, I can't be the only one on on Raymond Road hearing those. So as far as noise goes, it's there. And they are scheduling these events. So you're going to know up front when these are going to happen. So say if you want to plan an event, don't plan it on that weekend. That's all. I mean, I know that sounds rude or it sounds fresh, but I don't mean to be that way. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for your input. Yeah, let me just bring up a couple of items that the last year's events had some issues with notification and the process that those were allowed to happen. And I know at the Board of the Selectmen allowed that or permitted that. And the Planning Board had stepped in and requested that these be seen as a site plan application because everybody gets notified. Some people just didn't even know that these events were happening other than that day. And so, yeah, more information that can happen ahead of time, knowing what those schedules are, the information it would be, a lot better, I think, in moving forward.
I agree.
Thank you very much. Steph?
Kathy Morris did raise her hand. Would you like to go back to her, or we have another person that also raised their hand that has?
Yeah, let's go to someone new, who's new that has their hand raised.
Okay, so this participant is labeled as some snowmobile guys. So if you could please state your name and your address, that would be helpful.
It's some snowmobile dude, actually, but thanks
apologize.
Anyway. No problem. Stuff. My name's AJ Bachhuber. I'm at 116 Lakeview Drive. That's well down the south end of Nottingham. I've owned the property there, not rented, since 2005. Geez, I can't even tell. I swear it was just 10 years ago. I graduated from high school. I want to talk about the where people had brought up with regards to watershed, and in particular the boating on Lake Pawtuckaway, snowmobiles in particular on Lake Pawtuckaway in the state park. Someone suggested that because I live on a lake, I should be accustomed to noise from jet skis or boats and whatnot. That's simply not the case. That's just kind of flies in the face of logic. You move to a beautiful place like Nottingham because of quiet most of the time. And while that quiet is not guaranteed, we certainly do cherish our quiet. And I can certainly understand that. I take offense at the shameful, frankly, allegation that there was subversive behavior, that it's a who you know situation here in Nottingham. I think that's disgraceful to even suggest that. In my area of town, where from my house, we hear snowmobiles Friday through Sunday night. That's what we do. The state park is filled with snowmobiles, ATVs, particularly in the wintertime. And that's just something that, it's people enjoying, it's people recreating where we live. And we should encourage people to do that. I think it's important to help put Nottingham on the map and share our beautiful little section of heaven here with other folks. I too wanted to mention the 10,000 plus horsepower dragsters, funny cars, rocket cars, Lee Speedway, Star Speedway. I'm assuming those, I hate to just open a Pandora's box, but I'm assuming those are all permitted, and Nottingham has been notified extensively about regional impact of those events, and that we had some sort of an ability to react or act accordingly. But it seems that those events continue to go on. I'm also surprised, frankly, at the board and the discussion that's taken place and some of the topics that have been raised that are simply out of scope. This is a permit for an occasional event. It sounds as though if I throw a birthday party that, might have, no one could define what a large event is. But if I have a birthday party for my daughter, do I now have to pull a permit and pay some sort of a fee to the town because it might be some sort of an impact? I think that this the attempt to broaden the scope and or kick the can down the road to some other officiating body let's just get this thing done. There's no constitutional guarantee. There's no town guarantee that you're going to live in absolute silence. And there's no evidence that the sustained noise at any level that someone could measure is an actuality. That's just unfounded. So that's what I had to say. Thank you.
Appreciate it, AJ. Good comments. Any newer, other than we can open it back up to, I guess, Kathy at this point. Sorry,
Yep,
Mr.
we
Welly.
have Kathy and then Lee. Yep.
Hi. I know I've been labeled And it's not the first time I've been labeled, but sticks and stones. The point is, I do have a decibel meter. I went and got one because it was so loud. And if you do any research into it with audiologists, they will tell you that between 75 and 85 decibels definitely does have an impact on your hearing, especially when it's for periods, strong periods of times and one after another. And so I'm not making smoke, not blowing smoke up anybody. I'm just telling you the facts, because these facts are easily available online or from your local otolaryngologist. That's for sound. There are dangers to sound. There's also dangers to wildlife with sound, because noise pollution affects them mightily. And I worked for 8 years for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and I'm well aware of how sound and other things can impact wildlife. Also, what has not been addressed yet, and this is for the snowmobile dude, you ride your snowmobiles and they're fine, but the snowmobiles they're using in these races are modified and don't have any exhaust constriction at all. They have no tailpipe, no muffler. I can't say tailpipes. There is no muffler to suppress the noise, or they won't go as fast as they want. And that noise is very extreme. I'm not saying you shouldn't have any noise. We listen to the trucks coming and going all the time. They're not a problem. Even with the windows open in the summer, they don't make anywhere near that much noise. The noise is more than 100% louder than what the trucks are. To say that, oh, I shouldn't plan anything for that weekend is rude. Not only that, if I wanted to go away from the weekend, I don't have the finances to go away when they're having these things done. I'm on a limited income. I'm retired. I only have so much money to spend. So I can't just get up and go away because they're having a race and they don't want me being a nuisance. I appreciate Tammy inviting me there, and she'd set me up there, but I just can't be around that much noise, even with earphones on, earplugs on. It just doesn't do it enough. And I know people want to do this because it's fun, but things aren't supposed to be causing a problem for other people. And I know other people who are opposed to this, but haven't come forward. I had a man that wanted to go door to door to get signatures. Unfortunately, with COVID, he could not do that. He did not feel it would be acceptable to do, and I agree with him. But that's hearsay at this point, because as far as I know, he's not online. So anyway, I'm going to leave it to you to do what's right.
And we do hear you, and we appreciate your comment. It's not as though we aren't listening to you. You know, we take in everybody's comments here. So, you know, your comment is as important as everybody else's. Mr. Weldy, and please keep it brief if you could.
Okay. In regards, just give you a quick overview. According to New Hampshire state law, I'm a licensed inspector, and I've been since 1981. Section 266-59A, motorcycle noise levels. You realize how many motorcycles run up and down our road. I have ridden in or rode in groups of over 1,000 motorcycles on this road, just so you know. I'm a member of Legion Riders. A motorcycle, for all motorcycles, 92 decibels while the engine is operating at an idle speed. So New Hampshire allows up to 103, depending upon the RPMs and that on the road to run legally. I was on with the Andy Blacksmith ride with 1,000+ motorcycles. I did the Fallen 7 ride, which had probably 10,000 motorcycles. We run a ride, 2 rides out of our own post. We exceed over 200 motorcycles, run down this road. And I've been here like I said, I've been here for a long time, and the motorcycles run up and down this road legally. they can idle at 92 decibels. And that's right in the New Hampshire statute according to the New Hampshire inspection law. And we all have to be certified and have certified decibel meters, which read plus or minus 0.5 decibels. They're not phone held ones. They are calibrated, no different than a radar gun. So the 70 decibels to 80 decibels is well below what is allowed on our roads, which will go right by her house.
Okay, thank you for that.
Yep.
Anybody else have input? Let me just ask if there's anyone else that has some input. Please just indicate raising by your hand. Okay, what I'd like to do is bring it back to the board. You've heard a number of comments from the public. We have some items that we're just not fully sure about, some information we still would like to get. What's your purview at this point? What would you guys like?
Mr. Chair, I have a couple thoughts I'd just like to rattle off. Kind of first to just get it out there. This has been applied as a site plan application. So to say that we can't review this from an operations standpoint, that is what the application is for. And to say that we're kicking the can down the road for licensing, that's not our decision. That was a decision by another board to do that process. So just stating that it has been publicly stated they will have that process. It's out of our control. Other than that, I think it didn't seem to me that there was a ton of operational comments, which is really what we're limited to on the site plan review. It was related to the noise. I know you've already stated, unfortunately, we have our hands tied with no noise ordinance to enforce. So I don't think I had any new comments. I just think I'd really like to see maybe that some communication, just make sure that the existing permits that are in place aren't affected by any of this use.
Yep, I agree. Thank you.
And that's kind of where I'm standing.
Any of the other board members?
I agree with those comments. And again, yeah, not trying to kick it down the road to any other boards, but again, this is our duty as a planning board, serving the committee and the applicants, the community and the applicants, to make sure that we do our due diligence and that we don't step on any other board's toes. So overall, this is the residential agricultural zone, and this is a proposed commercial use of that these events, I believe. So I do think getting our own legal opinion to make sure that we're following and the our own guidelines is the way we should be. I think that would be great that the applicant has an attorney and has their opinion. They're advocating for the applicant, which I think is their job. I do think it would benefit our board in the town to also just get review by legal to make sure that we're in line and that we're not either or stepping our bounds, and that we're not missing anything, any other approvals that should be occurring. And I do agree that the state agencies should at least be notified and have a chance to comment. NHDOT for the driveway, since they're the ones that rule Route 156. New Hampshire DES for the AOT Bureau and the Wetlands Bureau. And I think Fish and Game obviously is clearly aware, and they have a permit process for this, but we should make sure that we're not stepping on the toes or that none of those other permits are impacted through this use.
Yep. I agree and endorse that as well.
I agree and endorse that also.
And I do as well.
Okay.
I think getting that opinion would be, again, yeah, we don't want to send the applicant to zoning if they don't need to go. So I think getting that, input from council would be good so that we can make a determination from there.
Right.
So Mr. Chair, at what point should we schedule a site walk Until after we hear from council or before?
I think we can schedule a site walk at any point. You know, that the applicant's available.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Ed, can I say something? I mean, I just want to know what would the board do if this applicant turns around and says, well, it's private property. There's no noise ordinance. So they just do it. And they, you know, just saying that they did it 5 days a week. What would be not only the planning board, the select board, there's no avenue or no way to do anything about it. So.
Well, yeah, there is. It's not commercial property.
Yeah,
no,
the use is
private property. They do what they choose on their own property.
It's not in the commercial zone. We have zoning in town.
I think that's a very inappropriate question even to pose as one of our town leaders, because it's the Board of Selectmen's job to enforce.
That's what we spoke about at the select board.
It's the Board of Selectmen's job to enforce and regulate the laws and direct the chief of police, the fire chief, and the code enforcement officer to do their jobs. So I think, I think asking that is saying, hey, someone's doing something we think is probably not within the permitted use of the land. Because at that point, it's going to come to the select board to decide enforcement. We don't decide enforcement at the planning board level. It's the select board that does.
Right, but I mean that was a topic. I was also saying it was a topic at the select board was, what do we do? I mean, if it's private property, and we have cases all the time. I mean, we've had cases here recently about gunfire at 3 o'clock in the morning. I don't know. What do we do about it?
Well, guns are regulated, have their own RSAs specific to guns and gun ranges and all that, and what you can and cannot regulate. Fish and game gets involved depending on hours that they're being fired and discharged, the distance from the houses and such. But again, outside of that, it depends on the usage, and then it's the Board of Selectmen's job to make the determination and direct enforcement of potential violations. We're not a enforcement board. We're a regulatory board. We give approvals or denials for plans, but we have zero enforcement action.
And I think in this case, obviously the applicant is very willing to, work through getting this done the right way.
That's basically my point. I mean, that's, and I don't mean to say, I'm on the select board. I mean, I can hear Lee Raceway, from the moment it starts until, long after I'm trying to go to sleep, but I can't do anything about it because somebody in this town, if they received the notices like we sent to Raymond and Epping, said, no problem, have at it.
Well, that's actually, and I'm glad you brought that up because a lot of people mention Lee and Starr and Epping. So those could have been in existence before zoning. I mean, we can't speak towards them. All we can speak towards are new uses. So, or changes in uses. Those pre-existing, I don't know what happened with those and everything, but we're guided by our master plan, our current zoning, our current subdivision regs, and our current site plan regulations. And those are our forming documents to guide us, from the town and the town residents on all sides.
If I could
they
just say,
they were voted in by the voters of the town.
The raceways, this is Susan, the raceways in Epping and in Lee are over 45 years old, and there probably weren't any regulations and regional oversight programs to contact other towns at that point.
I think Ed did touch on the main point here is that it's all about the use. And so is this an accessory use or is it a new use? And to me, that's the big question of the day.
Yeah. The English language is very interesting, isn't it?
Well, what we'd do right now is we come back within the board here and get some get a conversation meeting with town council and get some input from them.
Do you need a motion for that?
Well, I think we would just need a motion to continue this meeting.
Okay.
And
So,
Dirk, is that just something that you'll take your notes and just reach out to the appropriate department?
yes, I'll initiate that. And what I'm going to be really asking about is the use of commercial property, the use of temporary use, just trying to get some clarification on those commercial, residential uses.
Because essentially it's an approval, it's a pre-existing non-conforming commercial use potentially because of the gravel pit use with a temporary in a residential zone. So I guess that's probably where you're going with it.
Yeah, and you know, as the applicant's attorney pointed out, I mean, maybe temporary isn't the appropriate language. It's accessory. So we'll just make sure that we get everybody on the same page and make sure that we're not here setting. I mean, we are setting precedent, so we want to make sure we're doing it the correct way.
Yep. Unless anybody else has any other comment, I'm prepared to make a motion to continue this case to the next meeting. But I'd want to confirm with Mr. Frankowicz and the applicant. Are you guys? I know, like maybe a copy of the AOT permit and just some of the other stuff that we've requested. Is that something that you can probably get to us pretty quick so that we could be hear you on the 14th, as long as it's not packed, Joanna?
Yeah, we can get that to you. And there's some minor plan revisions too that staff requested we can get done.
Yeah, I assumed you probably already have a lot of it on hand and you just send it over.
Yep.
The question of whether it's packed, currently we have most likely 4 cases. There's 1 case that's hanging in the balance. It has been applied for, but Steph and I are working with the applicant. So 3 cases right now. If we include this one, it'll be a 4th case.
And I do want to just make sure that we give our counsel enough time to review this. So we can't expect a 2-day turnaround either from them.
Yeah, and that was my next question. And then, but then if I'm looking at the calendar for our next meeting, and that's the 28th, and I haven't heard what the exact date is, but I do want to be conscious of, I'm sure the applicant's going to say something to the fact that I think their first event is planned for May. Understand that we do have to do our process, but Dirk, do you think the 14th is too fast for town council to get back to us?
I mean, I can ask them. Let's just go ahead and try and get it as early as possible. So I would say the 14th.
All right. Then
we'll push him for a response.
Okay. So with that, I'll make a motion to continue case number 21-003-SIT to April 14th, 2021 at 7 p.m.
There's a motion. Any second?
Second.
Thank you. Goes the buzz.
Buzz.
Any other discussion on continuing? Okay, I'll take a vote. Ed Veal?
Yes.
Gary Anderson?
Yes.
Susan Mooney?
Yes.
Ian McKinnon?
Yes.
Tyler Eaton?
Yes.
Robert Davies?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. So we'll continue this until that date, and we'll leave the public hearing open as well.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. And we'll just stay on the board will stay on here. We've got just a couple more things to wrap up. Some minor things, just updates. If I could just run through those. Ed, do you have any update? Well, I'm going to put you last because you always come back around.
Give him time to think.
Yeah. Yeah. Prepare yourself. Gary?
Just update on Stratford Regional, mainly working on the transportation plans for DOT 2021 to 2024, and also Metro transportation plan for the same years. And maybe Steph has anything I might have missed, I hope.
Okay. Susan?
No, nothing tonight.
Ian?
Nope, I've survived 2.5 weeks of fatherhood, and I guess I look okay.
Ah.
I'm gonna probably fall asleep about 5 minutes from now, though.
Buzz, do you have anything?
No, just congratulations. I think you beat Ed's record tonight.
Yeah, I heard the last meeting went really quickly.
Yep.
Because I wasn't there.
18 minutes.
Leanne, do you have anything update?
Nope, nothing tonight.
Tyler?
We had a meeting on the 22nd. It's regular, approved manifest, approved minutes. Talked about the 300th anniversary and all other committees. Chris's report, we are under agreement with the property that's across from USA Springs, the old USA Springs property. Talking about there's a few other parcels in town too that we'll be looking to sell. Approve some veterans tax credits. Motions approve some intent to cut or excavate. And again, approve that special licensing for events. And the town, we're receiving up to $500,000 from the government in aid. And the engineers wrote to the Board of Selectmen regarding the Kelsey Road culvert. It may be able to be listed in the pipeline, so it could happen sooner. If not, it could be up to 10 years. And we talked about the recycling department supplied data charts showing the expenses. Materials have increased. Mm-hmm. That's about it.
Tyler, do those properties go up for auction that you mentioned?
Well, we don't know what we're discussing. Maybe trying to sell them through a realtor.
Thank you.
Another question I have is, with the stuff on that bridge, are those documents are those made public online anywhere, or
they should be on the town website.
Somewhere on the town website? Okay. Just curious. Thanks.
Thanks, Tyler. Ed.
I'll keep it brief. I attended the NHMA webinar Zoom thing the other night, yesterday, the workings of a planning board. It's for new and existing members. Mm-hmm. Other than a bit of technical difficulties at the start of the Zoom, which was kind of hilarious. It went really well and it's pretty informative. I'll share the slides with Joanna so she can forward it off to anybody so you can get kind of a look through of it, and it should be on posted on I think YouTube at some point if you want to sit through it and listen. But it was helpful.
Great.
Thank you.
I don't have anything, so I'll go to Joanna.
I don't have anything.
Okay. And just for, I guess, scheduling purposes, since we did continue that most recent case, if there's a new one and we feel like the agenda's too full, then we can put the new one to the 28th.
Okay.
And we can talk about that offline if you like.
Okay.
All right. Steph, did you have anything?
I did not have anything else.
Okay. Did we have any minutes?
No. Not tonight.
Okay. All right. I think that's all I had. Unless others feel like they want to stay on.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adjourn.
Thank you, Ed.
To mention.
What, Gary?
Yes, regarding, I think I had seen somewhere, note from Raymond Planning Board inviting us, or thinking about inviting us to one of their meetings, but we have done that in the past. And I thought when I saw that would we want to maybe turn that around a little and invite them to join our meeting instead? But just an idea, thought I'd bring it up.
Yeah, thank you. In the comment letter that they responded to when we reached out to them for, you know, the Watercross event, that's where they replied back, and they did want to, you know, get together at some point, the two boards. So that's good.
And that has been helpful. I attended a few of those. I think Gary did, and Sue. It was pretty helpful because it was Raymond, us, I think Candia, Fremont, Epping, I think all attended. So you kind of get the bigger picture of kind of, you know, what's happening regionally in our region versus, you know, just in our town or our neighboring border.
Do you remember who set that up?
Raymond. Raymond did it multiple years in a row.
Yeah.
There was also one in.
What was that?
There was also one in Kingston.
Oh.
But that might have been even a lot earlier.
Okay, who's going to second Ed's motion?
Again.
I am.
Good night, everybody.
All right. Good night. Thank you very much.
Good night.
Yep.
Good night.
Right.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.